Happy to talk if I can. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I'm in my studio just now. I'm an artist, showing at galleries internationally already. But I'm always thinking about new ways to kind of react to the art market and also kind of think about the kind of world we're in right now. And I've been watching a lot of videos with Seth Godin and looking at marketing and different types of advertising as well. And I've been kind of thinking more about the kind of longevity of an artist is kind of more relative also to self-marketing and branding. Um, and also thinking to what extent the gallery's responsibility is for controlling the marketing and branding of an artist. I'm just kind of thinking, well, curious what your thoughts are on this.
I think the responsibility of the distribution and marketing of artists always rests with the artist. The artist is the center. I think this is a mistake many artists make. Even if someone like me comes along or whoever, the artist must never forget that they are the captain of their own ship, and they must never ever give that responsibility away to anyone. It is their responsibility. We as dealers, as gallerists, as supporters are we are not miracle workers. We try really hard to make things happen that are very difficult to make things happen, and we take huge risk. But we need the support of the artist on our side, working with us, not against us, in order to build. And sometimes galleries are busy, are not that interested. So you should never hand the keys over. You can hand a copy of the keys over, but never hand the keys over, ever.
But then do you think about the longevity of an artist? We're talking about how artists, come and go, kind of like trends almost. So
let's ask two questions. The longevity of the artist. There are trends, and so those trends basically it's like a light. So it's like day and night. At night you can't see things, and during the day everything's clearly. And there's a cycle. The day goes long, the day goes short. You as an artist, as a practice, should have longevity. Whether it's night or day in your studio or in your life, that's a different thing. So night comes for everyone, day comes for everyone, and it comes and goes. You do not live in a continuous stream of daylight. The longevity of the practice is one that is sustained internally within the studio, and as I told Odysseus earlier, within the psychology of your state of mind, which as an artist should be something that you learn to. It's like a ritual. It's like doing yoga or going for a walk or dancing. When you dance, you don't think about the end of the dance. You think about just the dance. And during that dance, you're happy. You're not like, oh, well, in 10 minutes I can stop dancing and I can reflect on how wonderful my dance was. And I think the longevity of art and the longevity of the artist is basically that format. And if you externalize the trends are fickle and they're dangerous. And when you understand that they are trends, that they're driven by vapidity and insipidness and stupidity and things that are not relevant, you ignore it. And you also have to realize that you will die and your work will disappear and be a ruin like every other artist and craftsman's work in history. That it's a dance that you make. And all of our end games long run are the same. And I think it's a psychology question. It's a market question. Is it's a mind game. What did you say, Steve?
Or not? I think the idea of talking about economics and talking about the success of an artist and relational to the gallery's responsibility, they're also intertwined. But it's also there's a few things not being kind of addressed here about how, on a marketing level, or how can I phrase this?
The gallery is powerless. The gallery is powerless. the gallery has no power to a trend. A trend is a trend is a trend. The gallery has no power. A gallery can represent, you know, we have a guy here, Bill Brady, online. He's in New York City. Bill is a really interesting character. I'm just going to point him out. He started a gallery 2 decades ago called ATM Gallery. And ATM Gallery stands for ATM machines that he had all over New York that would spit out money. And that's how he built his gallery. He represented an artist named Huma Baba. He started her out, her career. For a decade or longer, no one was interested in her work. There was no... Bill was the guy who built Huma Baba. Today, she's one of the biggest artists in the world. And Bill had artists against trend for such... Tomo Gagito, who's now a major artist, and many, many others. And I think the gallery has no power. The gallery's only power is to believe things that no one else believes for very long periods of time, unswervingly. You know what it is to represent an artist like Huma Baba for a decade and no one buys the work and no one believes in the work, and yet you wake up and you go to work and you believe? That is like yoga. That is like yoga master, spiritual centered kind of shit. And the gallery, and all kinds of galleries, the big galleries, you know, don't, you know, they just take the momentum. After Bill's believed for a decade, they come along and they say, oh, great. Now the trends change. We're going to take this away from you.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Bill Brady Gallery, and also Timu Gokita is an artist who I interviewed myself for Haunted Projects. I'm very familiar with his practice. I think it was more about how do buyers gain the trust to actually invest in artists' work if galleries in general are quite flippant with the artists that they show. It's like they're, you know, back in 2014 they were showing, you know, abstract, you know, process-based abstraction, and then it went down to like fabric kind of art, and now they're doing like bendy figuration kind of stuff. You know, it's all over the place, and generally people who are interested in buying into art for the first time are looking at places like Instagram, and really it's just a mess. And
it's not a mess. It's not a mess. It's diverse, and people are buying what they like and what they understand, and they're engaging. And you know, and yeah, it's a mess because it might not fit into your idea of what's good or bad, but you know, it's there and it's active and it's vibrant and it's pulsating and it's wild and it's messy, and they might be buying bad shit, but who cares? They're engaging. And you know what? It's a contact sport, buying art. You engage, you learn. You engage, you learn. You lose money, you learn. It's not like, oh, we need to make sure Mr. So-and-so makes money and he's fine and he's like, along with his perfectly made cappuccino latte in the morning and his private plane ride, everything's fine, he's going to be taken care of. Forget about it. It's great. It's the Wild West. Lovely.
So,
yeah.
So generally it comes down to this idea of changing the buyer's confidence in buying you know, an artwork, whether it's $100 or, you know, 20,000, depends on obviously how much money the collector has in their bank and what their salary is. It's like the idea of like buying a new pair of jeans. You know, like your pair of jeans only lasts you know, a couple of months or a couple of years, depending on how much you wear it. But it's maybe this idea of like this, maybe the taboo of disposability art is something that's not addressed so much.
It could be disposable, but also if you spend $500 on an artwork versus 100,000, you're going to basically, it's going to be an easier decision for you to make. And you probably might never sell it, because if you've got $100,000 invested in it, you need that $100,000 to pay for something. So you actually might keep something much longer if it's cheaper, versus being under financial pressure if you pay too much for it. You know, it's like most people can't afford to buy art, who are collecting art, so they buy it and then they sell it because they can't afford it. But like, you know, the collectors from the 60s and 70s held on to the stuff so long because they were like, well, I paid nothing for it and like it didn't make a difference in my life. It's like, I don't know. I think I think the chaos is great, and I think the chaos is something that has left a lot of the mid-sized galleries really flat-footed because they're slow, bureaucratic. They look for the same thing. And the small galleries, I can tell you in LA, Gebali, Nino Meyer, Anad Egby, Mihai Nicodem, Steve Turner, just speaking in my own community, these guys have made a fortune. Oscar Flard, L21 in Mallorca. They've sold hundreds of works in the last 6 months, a year, because the price points are low, because they're fluid, dynamic, they do business easily. No one has a crystal ball of what's going to be worth more or less. I mean, I have a different approach because I'm managing the artists. At the end of the day, I'm a collector myself, so I'm acting as a market force within the construct of the artists I buy. I bought a lot of art back then during the zombie formalism years. And you know, Dan Shortown is an artist who disappeared. I still buy his work because these guys are good artists. The trends change, but maybe you can collect out of trend and access works inexpensively by collecting out of trend, and then they come back into trend. But I think cost outreach, you know, you're with the galleries are also interesting forces because sometimes, and this is something that's counterintuitive as well, a gallery wants to control inventory entirely, but sometimes the chaos that happens from sales that happen elsewhere essentially create a situation that magnifies the aggregate demand for the artist elsewhere. So I have this concept of what I call the art business focuses on restriction of supply instead of building aggregate demand. And I use another analogy, which is how car companies operate. You know, Audi makes a car in Germany. They'll spend $100 million on an advertising campaign internationally to market the car and tell everyone how good the car is. And then on a local, regional basis, people will basically represent and take out local advertising, local dealers in their local papers to sell that car. So what Audi's doing is they're building global aggregate demand for their product, and then the local dealer is distributing and building local demand for that product. The art business is the building of aggregate demand is sometimes not there. You build a bigger market, there's more audience, you don't need to be so protective of the work because the demand profile increases dramatically.
Yeah, I've got several things I could say, but I think I'm holding.
Say them. Give me a go. I like it. Say them.
Well, I think the main thing is like talking about the several galleries that you mentioned are so renowned for being like dropping artists at the drop of a hat, and several of the galleries are got awful reputations, to be honest.
Like which ones?
Well, the one in Palma, for instance, is just you know, they just chase Instagram artists basically, and Steve Turner particularly as well drops artists like a drop of a hat. You know, he's you know, I have to be careful what I say, but yeah, several.
You don't have to. Yes, they do. They're different organizations. Francois Gebali has a much longer standing program. They're different kind of enterprises. But Steve Turner has also given opportunities to artists at the beginning, like George Roy, who's successful now, like Cotton Tweed, Kevin Mack. They're big stories, but at least he's processing a lot of artists and giving them their first shots. I mean, it's everyone does something different. You know, he's not there to be your lifelong friend or partner. They're all different participants doing different things. Some people you date, some people you marry, some people you don't talk to. You need all of them. Without Steve, you wouldn't have had, you know, Petra Kortright showed with Steve Turner at the beginning, you know, and, you know, she left. I work with her now. I took her over and manage her. But, you know, Oscar Flard is in Mallorca. He's a guy who's self-sustained, built a small business. He's building a bigger gallery, providing more exposure, you know, getting capital, acquiring capital, getting more money together. It's all additive to the system. This idea that a gallery does this and there's only one kind of gallery, I think is unfair. There are different kinds of galleries. And, you know, my friend Kathy Grayson in New York from The Hole is a woman who's built a business on her own dime with no money. People are like, oh, the program's terrible. That woman is you know, Gavin Brown's out of business, Andrea Rosen's out of business, Michelle Macaron's out of business, Kathy Grayson's in business. You know, so it's complicated. But you know, it's difficult to judge. Each of these people has different parameters. Steve Turner, who I know quite well, is one of the greatest collectors of African American ephemera in the world. I mean, an unbelievably interesting collector, but but yes, is he an ideal place for long-term representation? I don't know. And it also depends on who you are, because these guys do not have inordinate amounts of capital. You know, Hauser and Wirth has a huge amount of capital. You know, Gagosian has a huge amount of capital today. They're different systems. But yeah, I mean, you know, I've been criticized so widely by so many people that I attempt to give people the benefit of the doubt and understand each individual circumstances and conditions, and understand a coalition of opportunity can be managed by an artist, you know. And many people have dropped Steve Turner, for example. I don't know why I'm defending Steve Turner, but many artists have been like, this is the wrong gallery for me, I can be with the better gallery. And many artists use galleries like this as pass-through entities to get to better galleries. And so there's also a tremendous lack of trust between gallery and artist globally, because so many galleries have been left in the lurch by artists. Susan Wildmatter was abandoned by Charles Gaines after building his career for 25 years for Hauser and Wirth. Nicole Eiserman. Susan Wildmatter is one of the most respected, most professional, most profoundly decent gallerists you could meet in the entire world. You know, so you know, there is a decision-making matrix across the board that is highly competitive. Let's use those words.
Yeah, I think going back, it's more about how does the buyer gain the trust of the.
Who cares about the buyer? The buyer can do what they like. The buyer
I think
I
would like to interrupt you both for a second.
Our job is not to make money for the buyers. Our job is to manage artists, sell work, sell a good product. Carpe, you know, tell me.
I think the problem is when you think that somebody owes you something, and I often have that, like, it's mid-tier galleries or emerging galleries, emerging artists, and it's often, it just comes from this place like somebody owes you something. And I think that's the worst, and it's really disheartening. And I think at the end of the day, it's really about just pushing your own work, pushing yourself, and not giving anybody too much power, really. And please correct me if I'm wrong, so I can phrase it as a question a little bit more. But I think just this idea that somebody comes galloping with a white horse and just takes you in their gallery and everything is fine and they pay you monthly salary, I think that's really over. And I think the great tools that we have are Instagram and are some of the social media tools that we can use now, and we can actually be more independent than we've ever been. And maybe in 5 years' time, this is going to be so flooded that it's not possible anymore. But right now, I think I actually have a lot more freedom than I would have if I was just sitting around waiting for Gallery X or Gallery Y to appear. So I think just this idea of being like the lowest in the food chain is not going to help anyone, because at the end of the day, you're the content creator, you're creating the work. I think, you know, I don't think the galleries owe you something. And if they drop artists at the what is it? I don't know the proverb, what is it, like at the brim of a hat, no? But if they drop artists that quickly, then just don't work with them. If you're suspicious, if you don't connect with them, don't work with them. Maybe something works for you really well, like you have a dealer that's doing Coke and you love Coke and it's really fun for you, go for it, you know? But it's good that you know so much, so use that. That's what I would say. I mean, from my perspective, that's at least how I try to navigate. So I don't know if that helps or if that's a question.
Well, you know, I don't think it's the responsibility of the gallery. Like, I think the responsibility of the clothing company is to sell clothes that people think they look good in. But like this idea that dealers are responsible for making people money, we're not. I'm responsible for trying to sell art, finance artists, and stay in business. I'm not a stockbroker. I'm not representing that I'm going to make you money by selling you art. Not at all. And I think this is also something that, like, you know, the artist has got an institutional show coming up, which is financed by board members that basically I give special access to the work for. It's a crazy market. Art is worthless. We sell it for a lot of money and it's absolutely worthless. That's the magic of it. And you buy it and it's worthless, and it might have worth. You might be lucky once in a while. But I don't think like this idea that our responsibility is to make sure that, you know, I just want to show you stuff. If you like it, you want to buy it, buy it. You don't like it, don't buy it. You think it's too expensive, don't touch it. You think it's cheap, buy it. I don't care, because I've seen collectors only buy things that are worth more money, like ruthlessly, like won't even touch it. I mean, and you can speak to dealers like Bill Brady when they're selling Huma Baba 10 years ago. They don't buy it because it's not going to be worth anything, because they don't know. And like collectors, you know, are today, you know, yes, there's Instagram collectors and they're buying stuff they like and it's expensive, and that's great. I think a lot of these people are actually buying for, you know, in a very nice way. It's quick, it's easy. They're not like trying to make an investment decision. And sometimes you get lucky. And sometimes you buy things that end up being worth a fortune. And sometimes you don't. And I can tell you, more often than not, you don't get lucky. More often than not, you can't sell it. It's not worth anything. But does it mean it's not good? It doesn't mean anything. It's not good now. Might be good later. Might be good now. Might be terrible later. Who knows? But this like idea of giving, like the, you know, giving buyers, like it just feeds into a system where you basically just further validate and give authority to people who create systemic exclusion, you know, through and these people are on the boards of museums. They run the museums. They, you know, I like the Wild West. In chaos, there is order. Chaos is not chaos. Chaos is just something that's so crazy we can't see the order within it. But chaos is order.